Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Serenia 1977 out May 26 on Napalm Records. The album has 11 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio album. They are a Norwegian symphonic metal band. The design of this record is outstanding. On one hand, you have a very dynamic, a very fluid album that offers a little bit of a roller coaster ride from start to end. Not letting you know exactly what's coming around the corner, not offering repetitiveness throughout the different parts of the album makes this a very engaging experience. But it also has a sense of balance. You're able to digest this album so well that you can see not only the differences between the songs, but also what brings them together under one single umbrella. The ability to merge these two worlds, a world of diversity and a world of balance, gives this album incredible strength in the overall design. You don't depend just on the quality of the individual songs. Now you're creating a very interesting, engaging journey from start to end that's going to make the listener want to be there for it all the way through and not just pick and choose which songs sound better. This design is exactly what a full-length record should be when you look at a band like Serenia, but when you look at any band. The record has to offer quality within the collective without only looking at the quality within the individualities. As far as the sound is concerned, this is a big sounding record. I was expecting it to be, and that's exactly what I got. It's also an album that has a big, heavy influence of 80s and 90s sound present in it. Perhaps a little bit more of the 80s, but you could still see some elements of the 90s. You can see some pop elements as well. All of these things coming together under a heavy metal umbrella with a heavy symphonic backdrop, but not as heavy in terms of the utilization of it as I was expecting. Actually, one of the things that the previous record I felt overdid it. You have to be conscious of what you're trying to construct and what you want to be your leading actor on a song-by-song basis, and then overall giving you that full-length perspective as well. I feel like this is one record that changes the main protagonist from song to song. In some tracks you feel that the vocals are leading the charges. In some tracks you feel like the guitars are leading the charges. There's certain songs where the symphonic elements take the forefront and become the brunt of the experience. Some tracks the drums just have so much heaviness and so much power that's impossible not to see the impact that they have in the sound experience. Having this ability to morph from track to track and change who's leading obviously offers diversity, but it offers also quality when it comes to the creative output. It allows you to do more. It allows you to use the same elements song in and song out, changing the order of those elements, making a song sound completely different while the ingredients were exactly the same as the track that came before and as the track that comes after. And I have to start by talking about the symphonic elements because I felt that in the previous record they over-dominated the experience of the album. And it's important to have them there because you want them to create melody, you want them to create an atmosphere, you want the song's stories to come to life, and the symphonic elements are definitely there to help create those two elements, but you have to use them more often than not as a layer within the sound and not necessarily as the sound itself. This is still a metal record, so metal has to be present and it has to be able to be heard. And when you put too many symphonic elements on an album and allow them to overshadow everything else, you start to dilute the sound, you start to thin out the sound, and then it almost becomes more of a pop record than anything else. This record actually delivers exactly what it needs to deliver. It doesn't do that. It doesn't fall prey to that desire to create a larger-than-life album, a very cinematic album, and then to do so relying only or solely on the symphonic elements. This album still has that cinematic backdrop to it. It still has massive volume, it still has massive songs, but it uses different elements in order to create that experience, which is exactly what you need to do. And it's possible. The record proves it. When you look, for example, at the guitar sound on this album, the record has a great guitar sound all around. From the heavier moments to the more melodic moments, the solos that this album has are outstanding as well, adding value to the songs, but also bringing that intensity, that light, that brightness, and that size, making the songs feel a lot bigger. Here we are using a different element in order to creating that cinematic drive, in order to creating that volume, that big presence. The drums, the same thing. The drum sound on this record is really punchy, really heavy, actually heavier than what I was expecting coming in. I was expecting the drums to be a little bit more balanced throughout the entire album, being in the background, creating the foundation for the sound, allowing the guitars to kind of be overimposed on top of it, and then obviously the symphonic elements up front. That's not what I got. The drums actually have a lot more to say musically throughout this entire record. It was a huge surprise for me. But once again, giving the drums a little bit more room in the mix, giving them a little bit more of a predominant role within the song construction, giving them the weight and heaviness that they deserve in order for you to bring metal into symphonic metal, allows the songs immediately to feel much bigger, to have texture, to have substance to them. So the drums play an important role in this design and in this execution. Once it comes down to the vocals, I thought they were phenomenal, on point with each and every single song. Understanding the nuances of the lyrical content, but perhaps even better, understanding the nuances of who is the protagonist within each and every single song. When you're not the protagonist, but you're a very close secondary role to it, you have to be almost side by side with whoever that is. Either be the guitars, the symphonic elements, or in some cases, small cases, but in some cases the drums. And I felt like we got that song in and song out. And the songs where the vocals are pushed into the forefront and they're almost thrown into the wolves, they are able to control and dictate exactly where you're going with that track. They dictate the tempo, the pace, the energy, the emotion, making the song feel very organic in how it's put together and then how it is delivered. This is a sounding album that has a vocal performance that brings energy, that brings life, but brings a certain connection with the album that makes the songs feel a little bit more complete, feel a little bit more together. It's almost like you're not trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. This album has all the right pieces fitting in the right place, making everything work so well, so seamless, allowing the overall experience, even big at times, to be easy to process, easy to digest, allowing you to go through all the textures, all the layers, see all the moving pieces, and really see a lot more, not necessarily at first glance, but as you dive deeper and deeper into the album than what you probably would otherwise. A very strong record. It's one of those symphonic metal albums that is going to stand out in the crowd as far as 2023 is concerned. One of the best, if not the best, released so far. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Wintry Heart. Great tempo, great sound, great texture, but very direct, very to the point. Creating a little bit of a 90s vibe. There's also some pop elements that represent that 90s vibe really well, making the song memorable just from that point of view alone. It has a great symphonic side that relies heavily on the guitars to drive the experience. The symphonic elements are there, but they're not controlling where you're going, and they're not really dictating the sound experience per se. They're impacting perhaps a little bit more the atmosphere and the vibe of the song. The guitars are doing a lot more of the heavy lifting. The vocals are mesmerizing, they're captivating, and the chorus is super bombastic, and that's where you get that vocal performance really breaking through the glass ceiling and allowing the song to have this great climax every time the chorus comes around. It's just super powerful. One of those tracks that marries sound in terms of the symphonic presence that this band has with the heavier side of the band as well, becoming truly a symphonic metal song all around. Next you have Nomadic. This is perhaps my favorite song on the entire record. I just love the energy. It has a little bit of a dark vibe, but not overly dark, so I would call this a dark synth sounding song, because that's kind of the essence that I felt listening to it. The humming that they use vocally on this track adds to that dark, that dark aroma, that dark breeze that kind of weaves itself through this track, that leaves a little bit of itself throughout the track as you're moving along from beginning to end. Is a very great driven, heavier sounding song at times. The drums and guitars work really well in parallel with one another in order to create a thick, heavy, I'm going to say a thick, heavy wall of sound that just moves in unison. And then the synths come in, and the synth sound by nature thins out a little bit of that heaviness, thins out a little bit of that wall. This allows the song to feel like it's expanding and contracting while still standing still and moving in a very direct purpose flow. The chorus is an absolute earworm, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire record. It's fun to listen to, it's catchy, it's hooky, it's simple, it doesn't overcomplicate, but the drum sound on this song, the amazing solo that this song has, and then the great vocal performance that keeps up with all of this sound, with this big wall of sound, really makes this one of the standout tracks on the entire album. Last but not least, Timeless Desolation, a symphonic ballad. That's how I characterize this song. Because when you look at the verses are very stripped down, a song that depends heavily on the vocals to come into the forefront and lead the charges, lead the way. You're focusing on those vocals because they are that light, not just at the end of the tunnel, but that light guiding you through the tunnel so that you can get to the other side. Now, once you get into the chorus, you see that the song and the pre-chorus starts to build up. It hits you bigger in the chorus. The chorus is definitely more bombastic. It has more volume, more texture, more sound, but then it drops back down again into the chorus, and that's the dynamic that the track has. You see all the pieces then coming together as one later down the road, but it has all the prototypical elements of a symphonic metal ballad. It's not overly balladesque from beginning to end, but it's still a ballad nevertheless, one that has great sound, great experience. It comes in the tail end of the album, right at the end, but it's a song that allows you to feel like the album is coming to a closure, the album is coming to an end. It has that sense of the curtain coming down. It's the perfect finale for a record that, like I said, took you on a roller coaster ride. Even when you go on a roller coaster ride, eventually that ride comes to an end, and this song kind of represents that ending. This is it, Sirenia with 1977, out May 26 on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.